Is dating in the 21st century really that hard? This question came out of an experience I had last weekend while filming, where a young man came up to me and was lamenting, was talking about how hard it was to meet someone. Now, since then, I've had a talk with single people I know, both in the straight and queer community, and it seems like the straight community in particular is struggling, both men and women. I've talked to both men and women. Queer community seems kind of different. So I'm going to focus on the straight community and look at that question this week. Is dating really that hard in the 21st century? I suppose I should start by opening up about my experiences with dating in the 21st century. While I do a pub crawl looking for bottles and cans, I really should state two things about me that I think are particularly relevant. One is I'm obviously not a particularly physically attractive guy. So let's set that to that side. Now, the other thing is I've had a super easy experience with dating in the 21st century. I met a woman in the early 2000s in a lecture. We ended up living together. As soon as we both graduated, we broke up. I signed up for internet dating. A woman sent me a contact request. We went out on a date for coffee. We got married. That's it. Obviously, that's about as easy as it gets. I don't think it gets any easier than that. So when I'm exploring this whole concept of how hard dating is in the 21st century, we need to keep in mind that my experience is easy. So when I'm hearing from other people, I'm thinking, how can it be that hard? But I'm probably wrong. It probably is hard. There's so many people who've told me how hard it is, and I've seen so many friends struggle, particularly female friends. I don't have a lot of male friends, but particularly female friends. I always put it down to the fact that they were so confident and successful that men were finding them intimidating. But after this guy talked to me last weekend, I've looked into what's happening, looked at a lot of YouTube videos with experts, and it seems that men are struggling too. So let's look at what the reality of that is. I'm going to head out and pick up some more bottles and cans from a whole heap of different pubs. That's where we used to date back in the 90s and stuff. How old was that? In the early 90s, I met a wonderful woman at this pub. I asked her out on a date. We went out for a couple of years, and then she split up with me because I was too obsessed with traveling. And then she met a great guy. I went to their wedding, and last weekend she was out at a concert with my wife. That didn't seem hard either.
I'm Trinity Anderson, editor, fact-checker, and this guy's foster daughter. My foster father is touching on something called the paradox of choice and the Propinquity Effect. How shared physical spaces once provided baseline trust that algorithms now lack. Plog Vlog allows him to explore these questions in the field, while it gives me the space to tell my mother's story. When we return from that story, he'll explain what he has found out about whether modern dating really is that hard. It was the 13th of September, 1993. After months of travelling in a comfortable, platonic bubble through the USA, Europe, Turkey, and Egypt, my mother Liz and her childhood friend David walked into the Sarana Hotel in Nairobi to join an African overland safari. The shift in their dynamic was instantaneous. Sitting in the lobby, waiting for the tour to begin, was Claire, David's ex-fiancée, who had stormed out of their lives back in Hawaii in a jealous rage. Underneath the shock of seeing her, David admitted to me recently that a small, undeniable part of him was glad to see Claire. The dusty roads they'd soon travel seemed like a great opportunity to finally sort through his lingering feelings for her. But Liz saw the situation with a much more defensive clarity. She noted in her diary that Claire was no longer that naive girl from Honolulu. She had been travelling by herself, arriving with a hardened confidence and a clear intention to win David back. The comfortable bubble Liz and David shared completely evaporated the second Claire walked over and confidently said hello. Rather than fighting for territory, Liz chose a pragmatic retreat. While David and Claire spent the evening awkwardly clearing the air in the lobby, Liz decided to hit the hotel bar with the rest of the Overland Truck group. She buried any unacknowledged jealousy under a wave of social drinking, bracing herself for the messy reality of being stuck on a safari truck with her best friend and his newly confident ex. It was amidst that loud, crowded bar that Liz struck up a conversation with Mark, a young trainee police officer from London. He bought her a drink, and for the rest of the night, she let the loud music and his awkward chatter drown out the complicated history sitting just across the hotel.
In Africa, Asia and India, these things move more people and produce than any other vehicle. Just a little bit at a time.
Well, it's
Yeah,
nice to meet you.
yeah, you too.
Okay, I know this is not a pub, but it seems to be an appropriate and appropriately corny place for someone who does dad jokes to tell you about the first issue. And that is the differences between what men experience and women experience. So starting off with women, when they're on dating apps, apparently the amount of contacts they get is just completely overwhelming. And mixed in with that, of course, is clumsy and sometimes really creepy contacts. So they're having to sift through this bunch of sand that's falling down with tiny little grains of diamonds everywhere. And the diamonds don't shine very easy. And the diamonds are attracting a whole heap of other women as well. So we've got all this sand, tiny little diamonds in it, and the women have this problem of picking those diamonds out and sifting through the grains of sand that hurt when they hit too hard. Now men on the other hand, unless they are extremely attractive, and I'll get into that I think in the next episode, unless they're extremely physically attractive and generally over 6'2", then they're just completely missed. They are just not even noticed, discarded, at least according to the research. Yeah, let's move on. Let's find a pub. Something that came up in the brief is the concept of the paradox of choice. So when people go out on dates or they're meeting up with someone that they've met online, apparently there is this thought in their head that maybe there is someone better because they know there's just this huge pool out there. Now, getting back to the differences between males and females, I didn't see this in the brief, but it would make logical sense that the paradox of choice impacts women more. Now, something I saw on a video, and this may be complete bullshit, but someone said that women don't find about 85% of men attractive. It's the 15% who are tall, obviously present well, and look like they're getting ahead in life that are the ones that attract the women. That's from one video, right? So don't take that with too much seriousness. What that same person said is that men and women judge each other differently, or they think they do. Now, we all know that men tend to have a ranking scale from 1 to 10, you know, that old thing of, oh, she's a 10. And we think of ourselves the same way. And I got to be honest, I do think of myself that way. So I think of myself as a 4. I'm not gross, but I'm not up there with the super attractive guys. And I reckon about half of men are more attractive than me. I've always thought the same way. Now, apparently, the way men think, and I got to admit I'd think that way, is that if we perceive a woman as being around our rating or lower, then we are totally confused why those women aren't attracted to us. And that is totally how my mind worked when I was younger. Like, I'd look at a woman, I go, oh yeah, I'm about a 4, she's about a 4. Why isn't she interested in me? Now, strangely, not really strangely, I've talked about this practice effect. As I got older, what happened is that I got more confident and also became more kind. That's in the last episode. And what happened is I started attracting the attention of women that I thought were way above me. And at first, that really intimidated me. And then I started, in my 30s, to realize that the value of my competence and the value of my kindness was actually equivalent to their value and attractiveness. And then I started to think to myself, well, the attractiveness isn't as valuable as the kindness and competence. And I found that I was going out on dates with really attractive women and I was losing interest. At the end of the date, I'd drive them home so that I could get up early in the morning and go surfing. And it's only while I'm actually researching this episode that it dawned on me that I actually devalued physical attractiveness. Like, I'd be out on a date with them and the conversation would be boring, so I would drive them home so I could go surfing. So I wonder if that could work for other men, where they, when they're out on a date or when they're just talking to people, they could sort of practice their kindness and competence. That was in the last episode anyhow. I'm getting off track. I'm thinking on my feet. This is a pub. Let's look for some bottles and cans. The next thing we've got is the propinquity effect. I think that's right, propinquity effect. And what that is that in the past, like let's say back in the 90s and 80s when I was dating, you came across the same people at the same venues frequently. And I found the same thing at university, is that the situation puts you in contact with people and you get to know them. Now, I used to work as a bouncer at a pub like this, and I used to go to that pub when I wasn't working. And there was this one woman, it was in a little country town, and she was sought after by lots of the guys in town. Lovely Catholic girl. She had no interest in most of them. I think she was interested in me because I got around a leather jacket, rode a motorbike, bit of a bad boy, but not a dangerous bad boy. So I asked her out on a date. We went out on a date. At the end of the date, she said, thanks, but I'm in love with someone else. I went, fine. Stepped away. Valentine's Day next week. Someone sent her flowers. I went back to the pub that weekend and she came up to me, gave me a great big hug and said, I love the flowers. And I said, what flowers? Anyhow, it was another guy that had sent her flowers. The thing is though, all week she'd been thinking that it was me. By the time the weekend came around, she'd developed deep feelings for me. We went out for 3 years or something, were engaged for a while, and ended up traveling around the world together. With modern dating often being online and people living a very solitary lifestyle and quite honestly just staring down at their phones a lot, those sort of situations are probably rarer. People are not necessarily going to the same locations. Although that said, there's a couple of organisations here in Brisbane. One is Rubbish Club Australia and the other one is Coexist Brisbane. And Rubbish Club Australia goes out every Saturday morning to a coffee shop and the people get together and they pick up litter together. I know people who've actually ended up in relationships through Rubbish Club Australia. The other one, Coexist, does an assortment of environmental activities. Well, there's one. So I think that those sorts of things might be the future of modern dating. And that's why, turn it off. That's why whenever they pop up on my Instagram, on the Plog Instagram, I always make a point of sharing their content because I really honestly believe that they might be the future of how people meet each other together, like the Propinquity Effect. I think I said it right then. They are actually creating the Propinquity Effect, where those people are meeting up because they have shared values and they're meeting up regularly. They get to know each other. They can set aside any little things that they might not necessarily like for example, if the guy is a little bit too short, but the woman might see, oh, he's really competent and he's really kind and he looks after the environment and he speaks to me nicely, and all sorts of things like that that override that initial value that comes from what they look like. Morning, sir. How are you? Have a good one. Okay, what's our next topic? We've done the Propinquity Effect. Oh, commodification in dating apps. Right, we'll get to that. I'll get to the next pub and then we'll do that one. Gloves on first. The commodification of dating. Modern dating apps treat people like a commodity. So people are easy to find, easy to meet, and easy to discard. So, for example, someone goes out, they go on a date, they wear them for a while, and then they trade them in and move on to what they hope is the next step up in their dating journey, hoping to trade up because there is such a large resource out there. What happens with this though as well is that whole dopamine addiction effect, where the dopamine hit that comes from meeting that new person actually mutes the feeling, that positive feeling from dopamine. So the next time you go out on a date, that feeling is not as strong. Also, there's what I've heard, and it's not in the brief, but I've heard it elsewhere, is that the similar thing happens with oxytocin, so that people are feeling very, very strong oxytocin feelings from other sources. So when they end up sitting down at a table from someone, there requires a much higher level of oxytocin before people start to feel bonding with those other people. Now, the dopamine effect, yeah, that is in the brief. The oxytocin thing, take that with a grain of salt. That's just something that's coming out of my memory as I'm talking. You know, sometimes I just ad lib. Feel good finds. Do dating apps create feel good finds, or just feels? Of course, this whole dopamine thing is like the slot machine effect. And slot machines are there to make money. So are the dating apps. So that's where we get to the whole commodification of loneliness, the commodification of being single. So on dating apps, if a person finds their match and they then are no longer looking, of course, people are going to delete that dating app. But that's not good for the bottom line of the dating company. How you doing, buddy? And therefore, it serves the purpose, the bottom line of the dating company, the dating app company, to keep you swiping, to keep you looking for that next better person, to put faces in front of you, profiles in front of you that are going to make you not want to settle down. Of course, that then creates a situation where most people are probably going to get lonelier and lonelier and lonelier because they're single. And then they give up on the app, they try a new app, they give up on that app, they try a new app, they go off it for a while and they tell everyone on their Facebook profile, oh, I'm not dating anymore, I've given up, and then they get lonely and they download an app again. It's a vicious cycle. There are definitely trade-offs though. It's a bit like shopping in a market square. You get to know all the products, but there may not be choices that actually suit you. Whereas in the modern internet dating game, There are plenty of products. It's like a giant city full of products. You have plenty of opportunity to pick, but there may not be the ability to pick the right one. You don't get to know the right one, I should say. Now, what also happens is that in a village square, you may not find the product that is suited to you. You might be looking for a very different product than what you find in a village square. That's where, like, for example, a small town boy might come to the city to find the love that he needs. Thank you, Bronski. Morning.
My foster father correctly notes the impacts of volume burnout for women and invisibility burnout for men. The dopamine and oxytocin effects he mentioned align with the slot machine mechanics of variable ratio reinforcement in dating apps. Treating people like easily acquired products is what sociologists call commodification. Despite stumbling over a few words, my foster father covered this pretty well. So let's wrap up. In this episode, we've explored how the transition from the village square of the 90s to the global megamall of modern dating apps has replaced organic connection with endless optimization. Here is a tiny action you can try today that might help ease into something that might become more than something. Initiate one low-stakes, polite interaction in a shared physical space, just to practice your own baseline kindness and competence. You might have noticed my foster father demonstrating this when chatting with the celebrity Nats Levi. There was a huge status difference between them, but my foster father just let that slide like water off a duck's back. If you want to dive deeper into these concepts, check out our companion channel, Plog Vlog Study Notes. It features the AI-generated research podcasts my foster father uses to prepare for these episodes, playing uninterrupted over our uncut B-roll footage. On screen now, you'll notice the next episode on the left, and our compilations waiting for you on the right. If you've made it this far through this video, congratulations on your curiosity. And please pick up 5.